Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for day one of the Cyber Chat series. I'm Laura Pursley, the Senior Marketing Director at Sensato. We're happy to have you join us to wrap up Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We will be recording these sessions, so if you do have to miss one of the days this week, we'll be sending out the recording at the end of the week. And we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the session today. We will be able to answer those at the end of the session. You can enter those questions in the control panel. We have a great lineup of topics for you this week, and our goal for these sessions is for them to be informative and educational, and hopefully you'll be able to get some key takeaways that you can quickly implement at your organization. Before we jump into today's topic, I do want to just share a little bit of history of Sensato in case you're not familiar with us. Sensato launched in 2013 as the first healthcare-specific cybersecurity firm. And since then, we've introduced the Cybersecurity Tactical Operations Center, and we developed a fully integrated cybersecurity software platform specifically for healthcare. Sensato is an ISO, which is an information sharing and analysis organization. And as part of that, we work with government agencies like CISA and the Department of Homeland Security and other agencies to share threat intelligence back and forth. We also have a memorandum of understanding with the FDA, and through that we share best practices and threat intelligence specific to medical device security. So today's topic is how to learn from and take action from healthcare threats and breaches. So we all see reports of a new cyber attack or a new threat or a new breach pretty much daily. I'm sure you're inundated, just like all of us, seeing these headlines in the news and determining what should you do with that information. And it can be really overwhelming to know how to react to that and to really understand, does this specific threat or breach really have an impact on my hospital? So today I'm going to go through just 3 types of threats. There are obviously many more than this, but in the interest of time, we're going to focus on these 3 key areas. And I'm going to share examples of healthcare specific threats, third-party threats, and then the general IT and application type threats that really impact almost everybody. So I'm going to share a 3-step process that you can use to evaluate these threats and determine if it's something that you need to take action on. So step 1 is to identify an owner that would be responsible for doing the evaluation. So you can assign someone from your team, that might be someone from your IT team, or better yet, your incident response team, and they'll be the one that will be in charge of doing the evaluation. Step 2 is to recommend picking just 3 to 5 sources to review the threats and breaches. There's no way that you can possibly evaluate every single threat, every single breach. That would be a full-time job, which I'm sure the person that you will identify as the owner will already have a very full-time position. So recommend just choosing 3 or 5 from sources that you trust. You probably are already tracking those today. These could be from media articles, threat intelligence reports. Government agencies often will share lots of detailed threat intelligence and information. And then step 3 is from those sources that you're monitoring, do an evaluation process for each one to determine, does this impact your organization and what should you do about it? We have a system in place to issue alerts to our customers that share some of this evaluation for you, but I'm going to get into really how to do this here in a few minutes. If you remember, step 2 was to identify those 3 to 5 sources. I just thought I would share a couple of sources that we track regularly. The HIPAA Journal is a great resource that shares threats and breaches. There's specific ones for healthcare, health IT security is one, and then also following agencies, government agencies for sharing that as well. We actually monitor, I think, between 40 and 50 sources, so I'm not recommending that you do that many, but again, if you do want a longer list or recommendations, feel free to reach out to us. So step 3 is the evaluation process. So this is a very simple table that you can use to do an evaluation. You may have other things that you want to evaluate to add to this, but this can be a good starting point just to get used to doing a regular process for evaluation. So looking at the threat information, determining if it impacts you, evaluating any recommended actions, and then communicating that in your organization. So let's go through a few examples to how to use this table and how that would work for you. So the first example is a ransomware attack on a third-party vendor. And this particular vendor was a cloud-based storage system, and they experienced a ransomware attack and they had to go offline for more than a week. The impact of that was that patients had to be transferred to other facilities and they had to cancel appointments, and that impacted about 170 service locations. Ultimately, no data was reported to have been extracted, which is a good thing. However, there was still a significant impact throughout at least that first week when they didn't know what was happening and they didn't know if any information was being extracted. So they still had to go through these mitigation practices. So how would you use this as an example to evaluate? So you would document the threat information. It was a third-party ransomware attack. In this case, the vendor was Electa. And then you ask yourself, how does this impact me or my hospital? We use Electa for our oncology and radiology system? If the answer is yes, then you would determine, what specific impact that is to patient care. And then start documenting your recommended actions. If you haven't experienced any outages yet, you may want to contact Electa and figure out what's going on and if you need to take any immediate action if you're impacted by the outage. And then evaluate your countermeasures. What would you do if you had to reroute patients? Do you have a plan for that in place? And then who in your organization would need to be alerted? This is the IT system administrators, obviously your radiology and oncology team. Document that here, who in this case would need to be alerted. And then keep an ongoing status. This may change as you're going through this evaluation, but it's always good to have documentation. If later on, you get audited and you can then show that you are monitoring threats and putting practices in place to mitigate those threats. Another example, this is also a ransomware attack, but this time it was a ransomware attack on a hospital. And in this specific case, they had to take a lot of their systems offline. One of them included was the fetal heart rate monitoring system. And this was down for at least 3 weeks. And this specific example, the nurses were not, because they had to take those systems down, they were not being alerted to what was going on in each of the delivery rooms at their nursing station. So they had to put other practices in place, but they really weren't getting that same notification that they normally get. And in this specific case, a baby actually died during this time, and the family is suing the hospital saying that it was due to the ransomware attack. And so I think this is a really good use case for hospitals to walk through. We'll take a look here at the evaluation, but I do recommend, I have a link to the article here. It's worth a read because there's a lot more detail in here about what happened. So in this case, the threat information is a ransomware attack. Does this impact your hospital? This specific ransomware attack does not impact your hospital, but I would recommend evaluating this as if you were attacked, if your hospital had the same attack, how would you respond? And how would you then care for patients if you had to take your systems down? And so you could come up with some recommended actions to review your incident response plan and do an in-depth review of this case and really determine if you would be ready to respond. And then again, who in your organization would need to be aware: the IT team, the leadership, incident response team, possibly others. And then keep a documentation of the status. And the third example is a vulnerability in Apache HTTP server. This happened a couple weeks ago. What you see at the left here is an evaluation, is a attack alert that we send out to our clients. And we document the situation, the background, the assessment, and the recommendation for you. So we've kind of done this evaluation here for you, but you can use information like this to fill out this template. So again, you'd ask yourself the same questions. The threat information is on the Apache HTTP server. Is this something that impacts you? Do you use that for your web services? If so, what would your recommended actions be? And then who in your organization would need to be aware? So you can kind of see how asking the same questions over and over, you get to understand really how each of these is impacting you in a very quick fashion. So those were just 3 examples. We could go on and on, but hopefully that shows you how you can use just a simple template like that. It is easy to become complacent with so many breaches and so much information coming at you daily, but setting a simple process in place to evaluate is a good place to start. You may progress it over time, but it doesn't really have to be a long process to start understanding and making sure that you have practices in place. If you do want a copy of any of this information, a copy of the slides, that evaluation format, or a link to the article on the breach lawsuit, go ahead and you can email me at laura.persley@sensato.co. I'll be happy to share that information with you. And if you are looking for something more in-depth, then the quick takeaway, we do offer a variety of advisory services, from risk assessments to penetration testing, tabletop simulations. If you really want to take a deep dive into how your incident response is doing at your hospital, we're happy to talk about any of these services with you. And I mentioned at the beginning that we offer a full stack solution. So we offer software and our cybersecurity tactical operations center with 24/7 monitoring and process and procedure guidance. So feel free to reach out to us if you want to talk about any of that in more detail. You can also reach us at info@sensato.co. So now I'm going to see if there are any questions. I think Kate is on the line. Kate, do we have any questions that came in?
Yeah, good morning. No, I don't see any questions so far. Let me see. We'll give everybody a quick second. Nope, no questions.
Okay, and if you do think of some questions later, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you for joining today. I hope you enjoy this quick hit format, 20 minutes or less. And we look forward to you joining us tomorrow. That's at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Chris Kazmarski is going to be talking about myths of medical device cybersecurity. So we're looking forward to that session, and we look forward to seeing you there. And feel free to reach out to us in the meantime with any questions. And thank you for your time today.